If you've driven a Jeep for any amount of time, especially on dirt and gravel roads like we do, windshield replacements are just regular maintenance. Just in our last trip alone, I got 4 rock chips. I have to fix these chips today, so I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do it, we might as well do it together. And the guy that I use for windshield replacement tells me that some of his Jeep customers replace a windshield once or twice a year. But there is one thing you can do to make your windshield last longer, and that's to repair those rock chips as they show up. And by fixing those frequent rock chips, we've been managing to get about 2 years out of our windshields. So why are Jeep windshields so susceptible to damage? Well, quite simply, the windshield is so upright that any rock, any impact, it absorbs the full force of it. So there's a consequence to that, is that they crack easily, you get a lot of rock chips, and what I like to call rash damage, just that pitting, that normal pitting that happens. Most vehicles, the windshields are raked back a little bit, and what that means is that there's less likelihood of damage. The rocks bounce off and do less damage to the windshield. But if you're driving a Jeep, that's just part of the experience. So there's a few options. One is you can get it professionally repaired. There is often in parking lots, you'll see somebody set up to do just that, fix chip repairs. And around these parts, that's usually about $40 per repair. Comparing that to a windshield replacement, it's a good investment. Permatex has a do-it-yourself kit, and I've used those. They work really well. One thing that I especially like is that you can place the injury into a vacuum. That helps the resin get into the injury, and it does a really good job. I think around here they're about $25 each, so it's a better value if you want to do it yourself. But the one drawback or the one negative that I see is one-time use. So it's a one and done. But there is professional grade tools available for the do-it-yourselfer. Clearview offers, and you can get it just on Amazon, some easy to use tools. And since I got to fix a windshield, well, I thought that's what I do today. Show you guys how to fix it yourself. So we have to understand the point of repairing rock chips is to prevent the windshield from cracking. The point is not to make the rock chip damage disappear entirely. In some cases, like the bullseyes, I've had a lot of luck with the bullseyes. They become nearly invisible. The starbursts, on the other hand, you can usually see them. They get better, but you can still see them. But the point is to retain the integrity of that glass so it doesn't crack and require replacement in the future. Now this windshield, unfortunately, this impact here has cracked in a half moon shape. Now there is an outfit in the area called Crackmasters. They will repair those cracks. But for the cost of that repair and this windshield, quite honestly, at that point, for me, it's not worth it. My goal remains to try and get a couple of years out of each windshield. So a crack on the passenger side of the vehicle, I'm not too concerned about. But cracks in the driver's view area, that's a problem. So I want to prevent it from cracking on this side and get a little bit more life out of it. A complete kit is available on Amazon for somewhere around the $400 mark, but I don't need a case. I have toolboxes to put tools in. So I broke down the kit and bought the pieces separately, and I think it cost me like $280. And of course that's Canadian. Basically you only need a few things. First of all, resin. You need a thin resin for filling in the crack. A pit sealer, which is basically a thicker resin that's going to kind of fill in the injury from the outside. A fixture to attach to the windshield, and an injector, which is basically a tube with a seal that will seal to the glass and a screw that will force the resin into the injury. A UV light to cure the resin, and a few odds and ends, like some extra seals and, what do they call these? And these little plastic squares, and I'll show you what that's for later. So first things first is to put the cylinder in the fixture, and you want the offset screw and the injector to be below the surface of the cup. And I like to put a little bit of moisture on it before I apply it to the windshield. Helps the suction cup stick to the windshield a little better. So all you have to do is align the injector with the injury. Apply pressure to the suction cup. Try something. Applying a light down the tube, I'll show you where you're aligned, and I'm exactly on the injury. Screw down the applicator till it makes contact with the windshield. The balance screw on the other side. And you want to put some even pressure on it. Now with the thin resin, apply about 10 drops to the applicator. Install the screw and screw it down until you feel a little bit of resistance. When you get to the bottom and it's putting pressure on the resin, you'll feel it. Right there, there's some pressure, and then I'm going to start applying pressure. Just, I don't know, 1/8 of a turn at a time. Now, if I've put too much pressure on it, I will notice the resin leaking past the seal. So I want to avoid that. And there's some things that we can do, like tapping the glass. A little bit more pressure. And here's a trick that a guy taught me many, many years ago. A little bit of heat on the glass helps. Now be careful here, not too much heat. Just so you warm the glass and it feels a little bit warm to the touch. Don't go too far or you'll melt the plastic between the layers of glass. Let it sit for a little bit, give time for the resin to enter the crack, enter the injury. And there you go. Now it's time to remove the tool. Now, do not back off the screw. What you're just doing is creating a negative pressure, which will pull the resin out of the injury. So what you want to do is catch the excess resin with a rag and just release the suction cup so the tool comes off the glass. Just like that. Wipe off the excess, and then with a plastic applicator, we're going to put our pit sealer on. And by the way, I reuse these, they're quite durable. 1 drop of pit sealer. And all that does is fills in the injury in the outside of the glass. And the UV light again with a suction cup. Turn it on. So after 10 or 20 minutes, we can take the light off. Take our plastic applicator off. And there we go, it's all cured. And we're going to clean it with a razor blade. I've seen some instructions on YouTube that show to scrape the pit sealer off of the razor blade as such, but I've seen better instructions from the manufacturer of the tools that suggest with your blade upright, you scrape off the excess. The risk is when you're scraping from underneath it that you might lift the sealer out of the injury. So with a new razor blade, scrape off the excess. There we go. 1 chip repair. Now, I'm not as pleased with this bullseye chip repair. It's more visible than I'm used to, but that's not the point. The point is that it's sealed and it should prevent it from cracking in the future. But I can practice some more. I have a few more to repair. Now, it's super important to clean your tools after use. You don't want that resin to harden on the injector. And quite simply, just clean it in alcohol. Now you can let it air dry, but what I like to do is blow it dry. There you go, ready to repair the next chip. And again, about 10 drops. Install the injector, put some pressure on. That's not working the greatest. The glass has a lot of damage to the exterior and it's hard to get a good seal. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. Even though I'm getting a little bit of leakage, the resin does seem to be going in. Now, the reason the starbursts are more difficult to make invisible is because the crack in the glass goes to a point. So the space in the crack, if you will, is gradually getting narrower and narrower till there's nothing. So the resin has a hard time to get into it. As opposed to the bullseye where it's a cone throughout the glass, the resin can go through it. So that's why one is easier to make disappear entirely and the other not as much. But again, it's not about making it invisible. It's not about making it disappear. It's about retaining the integrity of that glass so it doesn't crack in the future, making the windshield last longer. Actually, that filled in not too terribly considering the amount of leakage. And of course, there's another injury right next to it. I got two rock chips side by side. So we'll do that again. I don't think I've ever had two so close together without it splitting wide open. Now, applying heat, I don't know if that's an approved method or not, but I know it has been working for me. Oh, that one filled in really nicely. And let it sit 10-20 minutes, and that'll give me a chance to clean up my tools. Well, it's still visible, but it's much better than it was. So just with today's repairs at $40 a piece, that's $120 worth of repairs. And I'm pretty sure I've fixed 4 or 5 chips in this windshield already. So the tools have paid for themselves. And the consumables, which is the resin, I've used maybe half of it. We've probably repaired between Gene's Jeep and my Jeep, probably 40 repairs or so. And we've probably got 40 to go still. So it's great value. Comes down to a few dollars per repair. And actually this windshield is this July going to be 2 years old, I believe. And if I can get 2 years out of a windshield, that's my goal. And if you're thinking, well, that's what glass insurance is for, well, you probably haven't looked at the cost of glass insurance on a Jeep. It's more expensive actually than replace a windshield every year, at least where I'm at. As a matter of fact, I see one previous repair here, another one there, another one here. So it's not the first one we repair here. All right, so one last injury to clean up. Yeah, looking at the amount of sealer left behind in the injury, that was a bad one. So this last one I did remain quite visible, and this one here, huge improvement, and the one on the other side you can barely see now. So mission accomplished. As long as I can extend the life of the windshield, and if it doesn't crack in the driver's area, that's all I'm looking for. And this is a cost-effective way to do that. I really hope you found this information helpful and that it inspires you to do your own DIY windshield rock chip repair. Thanks for watching.